All right. Welcome to Remote Voices, episode 13. We have an awesome guest today. We've got Tyler from Hubstaff. He is just like a bundle of energy today. And so we're super excited to have him on. Let's go ahead and bring up our slide deck. But I tell you what, Tyler, why don't you just go ahead and kick us off by saying who you are, what you do, what Hubstaff is, where they can find it, what it does, all that good stuff. I don't know. Run for 2 minutes, man. The world is your oyster.
Got you. My name is Tyler Selhorn. I'm the Director of Customer Experience at Hubstaff. We are a time tracking, project management, and proof of work SaaS solution. We're an all remote time tracking application. We're self-funded, all remote since 2012. Right now in this whole kind of work from home wave, we've been posting up on, remote work software keywords since, the beginning. So then the world came to us all of a sudden, and we're not really excited about the way that happened, but we're also happy to be enabling, the remote work movement, extending that privilege to, more and more people every day. I used to be a technology-oriented educator. This time last year, I was ending a school year teaching 8th graders algebra, right? And then was fortunate enough to be, Dave and Jared at Hubstaff took a shot on me, and I became a really successful customer success manager, and then became the Director of Customer Experience in December. Loving the remote life. I'm a remote working advocate, especially for remote first companies like Yak, like Hubstaff. I'm really just excited to be here. I just want to say thank you to Hunter for connecting, in the comments on LinkedIn. I just think I'm just really grateful for the internet.
I think we're all very grateful for the internet, especially right now. Where are you 100%. Based out of?
I'm in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Okay. But I would say that Hubstaff, we have, people that work with us in 20 countries. We're, about 65 of us now. I lead a customer experience team from Seattle to the Philippines. So, I like, for example, even before I was leading this team, I was working a split shift. Like, part of what remote working does for me is, it allows me to get up in the morning before my children are awake, get some work done, kind of, quiet headspace all by myself. And then I cook breakfast for everybody, send everybody off. Well, back when we were going back to school, right? When we were in school, sending them off to school and then greeting them off the bus. And then, just being able to fit my work around my life, right? I'm a dad of 4. Tonight I'm getting ready to coach a little league game. Those are the things that get to happen,
That's
because
what remote work enables.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, we've been saying for a while now, kill the commute, right? That's our mission, right? Is to enable that and create the space for that to occur for more and more people. That's what we're about.
Well, awesome, man. We're super pumped to have you. Kind of the format of Remote Voices is we just kind of talk about current trends and topics, tweets that we found interesting. So we just queue stuff up. I read it out loud, and we'll just kind of like go around, talk to the team, and see who's got thoughts on each of these. So, this first tweet that we've got, actually, this looks like a LinkedIn post? Who uses LinkedIn, man? That's lame. This was on Twitter. So that was counted as being on Twitter, but I don't use LinkedIn, you boomer. So new, Slack is going remote. Most of their 1,600 plus employees can now work remotely on a permanent basis. Also, Slack will begin hiring remote workers or hiring employees who are permanently remote, announced Robbie Kwok, SVP of People at Slack. I love those titles, SVP of People. They follow the footsteps of several other unicorns offering remote work: Twitter, Square, Shopify, Coinbase. Welcome to permanent remote work. This is huge news for the industry. Facebook, obviously, probably one of the biggest ones to make that announcement. I find this interesting because Slack in particular has gotten a lot of flack has gotten a lot of flack because they were one of the teams that was adamantly against having remote engineers, but then they build a tool that's supposed to enable remote work. And so people are always giving them crap about, I guess, not dog fooding. And Tyler, you mentioned this before we got on the call, but you guys run on Hubstaff, obviously. And, that's a huge part of building a tool. I mean, we use Yak every day. We're obviously also big Hubstaff users as well, which is, really great to finally have you guys on the show. But, how important do you think this is that a company uses their own app? And do you think that this will change Slack as a product, as a company, now that all of a sudden they're actually starting to dog food?
For me, like I think, a key fundamental of, iterating your product forward is learning the edge cases, learning, testing out those features before they go live, right? The feature rollout, right? There's going to be some stuff that doesn't come into Slack's, product because it gets used in a remote environment before it shows up, in the thing. Because I mean, that's the piece that I think is interesting to me when you think about, how do you build a product for an audience that you are not among, right? It is how do you listen well to your customers, right? And one easy way to empathize with your customers is to be one, right? And I think for Hubstaff, right, Hubstaff runs on Hubstaff. We have a project management tool that our customer experience team, like we're using it, with the agile terminology and all the rest of that type of stuff, so that like we can actually have a conversation with the people that are using our stuff. Like I'm not an agile software developer, right? But I'm trying to iterate on our team in an agile environment, right? Using those terms, using that terminology, trying to grow and iterate and, hashtag ship it and the rest of it,
There's the voice. We knew we'd get the voice eventually. It came out
7 minutes in.
Okay.
Hey. All right. So, all of that stuff like is going to be the difference between you being really successful, in terms of like listening well and just giving it a shot. Cause like, hey, let's put something out there and see what happens. Right. Like you're going to be able to catch on to the things that are frustrating customers when you are using that product yourself.
So Tyler, let me ask you, I know that you worked your way up into customer service at Hubstaff. Does Hubstaff require each and every single one of their customer service representatives to actually use Hubstaff?
Yeah, the entire organization runs on Hubstaff. So
you force the company to use it.
I'm tracking time using Hubstaff right now.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Wait, so are you billable right now?
Yes, I'm billing my time. Okay. Thank you very much for letting me be here as myself and as Hubstaff. But that's awesome. I mean, I think that's one of the things that is interesting about, for so many teams. Once you kind of catch on to tracking your time and figuring out where your time has gone, our most valuable resource is our time. And if you're not keeping track of how it's being used, right, you're gonna leak. You're gonna have slippage, right? And if you really want to become, a next level, more productive type of team, you're not gonna, like why are Slack, Twitter, Square, Shopify, Coinbase, why are they all going remote? Well, they figured it out, right? That oh my gosh, we reclaimed all that commute time. We reclaimed all those interruptions that happen inside of an office, and now we're being much more intentional about the communication that we are having, right? We're starting to, you guys are all about the asynchronous, cut down on the meeting BS, right? Yeah. At Yak, I mean, that's the experience of almost everyone that is even giving it an actual shot.
And once you see the light, it's like this amazing. I can't believe we even did it a different way. It's interesting to see these companies. Jordan, do you think there's going to be a waterfall effect here? We've seen 6 major companies. What do you think the threshold is going to be?
I think a lot of people will follow in these footsteps. And I think I mentioned this too on our podcast a couple of weeks ago with Darren, but it's kind of weird how once like Twitter went remote or Facebook went remote, everybody's like, well, if they're doing it, I guess I can too. Or like, hey, let me look into these products that enable asynchronous like remote work. So I think we'll see a lot of folks follow in these footsteps, and I'm really excited for it because I think, Tyler, to your point, lots of people will realize, oh shoot, I'm wasting a lot of time on just dumb shit, to be frank. Let's figure that out and be more efficient with our time and just overall make the company better. I'm excited for it. I wonder
if Hubstaff actually has this answer. So if everybody is on a call at once, that's not just one person's time. Now you have 10 people's 1 hour.
Yeah.
So now it's 10 hours of productivity. Because I remember using Hubstaff back in the day, and you could
Mhm.
like track
Mhm.
how
Mhm.
much time people are spending in meetings. That'll be interesting to.
And it's
to
something
see.
that Jason puts in one of his books is that like when 8 people show up for a meeting, that's not 1 hour of lost productivity. That's 8 hours of lost productivity. And, I'm sure tools like Hubstaff show that in a very mathematical way.
Very
Justin,
quantifiable way.
Justin, even you and I have talked about this a lot. Is like when we like have used Hubstaff in the past and we go back and review hours, you don't realize how much, I guess, even incrementally wasted time there is just like on stupid stuff. So it's cool to see, especially products like Hubstaff that enable you to go, oh wow, maybe I can clean this up, or maybe I can be more efficient here. So
I mean, yeah, we use it on So Friendly side because I always go back to you, Jordan, and I'm like, why did our designer spend 20 hours on this task? Like, we build way under on that. We need to be billing way higher on these tasks in the future if they're taking that long. So, putting time to something is very interesting, and time is your value at the end of the day. And I think that weirdly seamlessly segues us into this next tweet, which is I don't know, Tyler, have you seen this? This is the job description for a new developer role at our favorite VC funded, backed, loved, and spread about app, Clubhouse. One of the requirements for their job was you work really hard. You work nights and weekends with your team, not just because you feel like you have to, because you love what you're doing. I mean, we were just here with Away, the suitcase company. This was just talked about, that you shouldn't have to come in on weekends, that you shouldn't be working late nights. What's the culture at Hubstaff like? Is this normal? Is this laughable? What do you guys have to say about this?
Well, our thing is that we're not just empowering business owners with our technology, right? One of the things that we're concerned about in this remote environment is overwork, right? So if you're tracking your time, right, you're going to know that, oh my gosh, I've already worked 45 hours this week and it's Thursday, right?
Yeah.
And how do you, when you're working from home, how do you separate, like maybe you've got a dedicated office. Like I'm very fortunate that we've got a spare bedroom that, my wife, she works remotely as well for her business that she owns. Right. So we share an office, but like I can walk out that door and shut that door. And now I'm not working anymore. But like for other people that they might be on their kitchen table, right. Or they might be working from their sofa. How do you separate the thing? Well, there's lots of little like tech hacks. Like you can have a separate desktop or a separate user login that says, okay, here's all the things. And then here's the other one where I'm just, surfing the web and hanging out. But for us in Hubstaff, you turn off the timer.
That signal being done with work.
I'm not working right now.
Yeah.
This is over, right? I'm not opening up that email, right? I'm going to use Chrome for business and Safari for personal stuff.
Hey, we talk about this all the time, separating your apps.
Yeah, so or if you're fortunate enough to separate devices, right? You can say, okay, here's the work laptop, or here's the work desktop, and here's the play laptop.
We found this out with Yak early on, is that we thought that mobile, as founders, we thought mobile Yak was going to be like the power play. And we heard this a lot from other founders. And when we talked to actual teams, they're like, dude, I don't use my personal phone for work. Like when I'm done with work, I shut my laptop off and then I got on my phone and then I'm on Instagram and Snapchat and I'm doing my personal things. I don't want work leaking, into that. We even heard from some people who said, I think that they said they just don't even have Slack on their mobile phone. Like they don't even run it on their phone. So, that's, it totally tells you something differently about the ways that I think a founder thinks about their company and the way that just like a normal employee thinks. And you can tell from this post that like the founders wrote this job description, right? They're looking for a mini me. They want another founder to come work for their team, somebody with that night weekend vibe, and expecting that of everyone is not only ridiculous, but kind of to your point, like it's not a healthy work-life balance. Like it's not something you should ask your employees to do.
Yeah.
Well, the person that wrote this job description needs to go to the school of Gary Vee. Now you're working for your people school, because he is banging that drum so hard so often, right? That I think that more founders need to listen to that, right? The economics are not supporting this type of job description.
Yeah.
Right. Unless you're offering, 90% equity on the deal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Treat them like
no
a founder if you're going to act
thank
like
you.
that.
No, thank you. I'm gonna submit my timesheet through Hubstaff and say thank you very much for the paycheck later. Right.
Yeah, my last job, I actually kind of have a quick story about this. My last job, the first day, I should have known from day one. First day in, I start packing my stuff up at 7:00, and everyone just kind of looks up at me. And one of the founders looks at me and goes, "Hey, Hunter, where are you going?" I'm like, "Oh, nowhere." I just take off my backpack, and I stayed till like 9, 10 o'clock at night. And it's amazing how that is part of the culture. But I do have to hand it to them, because I didn't know that going in. At least they're making it really clear. You have to give them that. If you can agree with it, you disagree with it. At least they're making it clear that's what their expectation is. I think it would be worse if you
got
into the job,
and
then they're like, "Oh, what? Why aren't you here?" And it's like Saturday night, and you're like not there. Like that would be even more stressful. So you have to give it to them. At least they're honest.
I mean, it would be interesting, to Tyler's point, to look at what they're offering on an equity rate. If you look at what the guys at Basecamp have said recently, like they don't offer any of their employees equity. And there was a lot of debate on whether that was okay. Well, you guys are making rich off of their work, so you should reward them for that. We're like, well, we do. We give them very high salaries.
Yeah,
we pay them very well.
They pay San Francisco rates.
Yeah, and we expect them to go home at the end of the day and spend time with their kids. And I think there was a tweet that we had on the last show that was David's tweet that said, we launch on Monday and I'm at the beach with my kids. And, even him as a founder, was very overt about saying I am going to cut that 5 p.m. deadline off and say, that is it. I'm done with work. I'm clocking out, physically or virtually, right? With Hubstaff, it's a button press, but sometimes it's also a mindset thing as well, where you say, look, I'm clocking out and I'm going to go to the beach with my kids. And, Jordan and I talk about this a lot, especially during lockdown. I think this has been very difficult for us as founders. We're always in front of a laptop, and I don't know, Jordan, how have you found? You're very oriented. You can do this. I can't. I just sit there and do nothing.
I love talking about it, but I think one thing that's worked super well for me is just a lot of structure. So Justin and I were even talking about this last Friday. From the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, I know what I'm doing, and I know what hours and time is allocated for work, if you will, and then what time is allocated for personal stuff. And I think doing that is critical, especially when you work remote, just because, to your point, Tyler, it's so easy to overwork. You're always in front of a laptop. It's super easy to just say, oh, you know what, one more email doesn't hurt, or one more thing doesn't hurt. And I think people really need to discipline themselves and build a structured schedule and have that in place.
For sure.
Yeah, I think it's hard to do now that we're locked down, and I don't know, cases are rising, so maybe we're all going to be locked down even further in the next couple of weeks. So it's a good reminder to everyone that you shouldn't expect that from your employees. And as a founder, you need to take extra steps to do it on your own end as well.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So, Tyler, did you catch the Hey launch? Do you have a Hey invite? Did you use Hey email?
Yes, I did not get CMO creative with hype at hey.com there.
Listen, I did what I could. I mean, you had to have a 4-letter domain or a 4-letter name, and I was just like, Hype King. That's what we're all about.
Well, I thought it was like a joke because I thought Hey was all hype. I thought you were like,
oh no,
that's not what that was.
Creative. No.
Okay.
No, I'm Tyler.Cellhorn at hey.com. So
okay.
All y'all podcasters out there listening to this one, you need a hype voice. I got you.
All 12 of them right now.
all of our massive. Oh wait, it's 9 now. People left after they heard Tyler's email. So they obviously did a great job with hype. This tweet that we have pulled up is basically saying that people were buying them for nearly $500 on eBay. The invites themselves. It's a $99 a year email subscription, $1,000 a year if you get a 2-letter one. I found VC at hey.com was $1,000. I did not buy that, but I typed it in just to see if it was available. But I mean, it proves I don't know. We talk about this a lot, this concept of you can sell anything if you really know how to polish a turd. And that's not to say that Hey is a bad product, but they've clearly done an amazing job of just amping this thing up to this ridiculous degree that people are willing to pay $500 just for an invite to the thing, where eventually, I assume in like 2 weeks or something, it's going to be open to everybody. I don't know when they're going to open it up.
They're like, there's something going on in Silicon Valley. I actually just saw that TechCrunch wrote an article about it. There's something going on in Silicon Valley about these like invite only, building up hype, almost like Supreme for software. But it only became popular during. It's like all those like hype kids went from like Supreme over into Clubhouse, hey.com, like all these
Superhuman.
Yeah, like these
all these invite only. I mean,
yeah,
was Hubstaff ever invite only?
No.
Okay.
We're definitely the come as you are and grow with us. Type of a team. We're co-creating this product with customers, right? That's the great thing about a SaaS company, right? Is that your incentives are aligned with the vendors' incentives, right? Exactly. When you are successful, we are successful, and that there are resources dedicated to helping you accomplish what it was that you were hoping to with Hubstaff, right? We're listening very hard for the things that are going to make you be successful. So yeah.
I love, before we touch on the next one, I really love that you talk about co-creation, because that's something that we're really big on at Yak. Is we are dog fooding our own product, but like, I'll have a conversation with somebody and within a day or two, we'll have that feature in our product. I think it just makes I think it helps build the community, but I just think it overall just makes the product so much better.
Well, we're building like relationships with our customers instead of treating them like a customer asset or a customer. Like you talk to them and you say, hey, what do you want? Like, what do you want this thing to do? And then they say, I'd love a keyboard shortcut to search easily. And we're like, sure. Like that seems easy to implement. Give me an hour, right? Like I can get that in there. And then we push it out, and it's a silly, stupid feature that maybe like 3 people will use, but that dude's relationship with us now is like, wow, they like care. Yeah. Like there was a level of like personal care that went into that. And I've always said that I wanted our product to be recommended, not because we're going to give you a $50 gift card, but recommended because you're like, dude, I want to share this amazing thing with people and I want you to see it. It's so cool. I want you to be a part of this community too. And
like hey.com.
But I don't want to sell those for $500 each. I want somebody to just like want to give, an invite out to something. So, I think that, do you feel like you have that at Hubstaff? I mean, obviously we recommend it all the time.
No, but that's the best kind of growth, right? Is a referral, right? The very best kind of growth, because someone who is successful using your product, talking to a like-minded individual who already has, a similar kind of like way that they organize their work, right? We love, customers that wear the Hubstaff badge. We our business, we have heard back from people over and over and over again. Thanks to Hubstaff, we've been able to continue, as we were, before the pandemic, right?
And it's a great feeling to get to hear that, right? Like that's exactly what you want to hear from your customers. Can we get some Hubstaff stickers? I'll wear a physical badge.
Here. Well, I'm taking the one off of my off of my. I'll be sending it in the mail. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll get a. We'll get a sticker mule thing going for sure.
Yeah, nice. Let's swap some stickers. We've got
I want the one off your laptop though. I want the game used one.
Okay, got you.
Okay. You have to sign it.
I'll get the Sharpie out.
Yeah, perfect. Please do. Okay. You're going to be a celebrity after all 8 people on our stream get excited about this. Oh man,
we need the soundboard.
Yeah, I need a soundboard. We'll record some sound bites after this, Tyler, and we'll record you.
Actually, let's just have him on every podcast, but in the background. And Tyler,
it's an extra guest that no one knows is here. This next tweet is related.
You need a soundboard. You do need the soundboard. Hit the sounds.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got Brooke is asking for a Hubstaff shirt.
Oh,
we have Yak shirts. We'll send you a Yak shirt, Brooke.
I've got one. I've got it hanging up back there, so you can have that one.
Nice.
Oh man, more game use merch.
I feel like Tyler doesn't understand how these remote sessions work. Like we can't be in his bedroom right now. I'm gonna crawl through the computer screen. But you know, speaking of the Hey launch, we've got this conversation between Rahul of Superhuman and kind of this conversation surrounding DHH's, I don't know, rant, pity party. I don't know what you would call it. Marketing stunt maybe is a better word for
sure.
Not getting the iOS app approved for the App Store. You know, they're in the App Store now, but Apple has told them they'll pull it from the App Store because accepting it was a mistake. You know, we, Jordan and I at So Friendly, happen to own another email client, Newton Mail. It is sitting in the App Store right now. We're doing fine. You know, there's rules and you follow them, and it's a process. You know, I think the funny thing about the Basecamp guys arguing about whether they should pay a 30% fee to Apple is ironic to me, considering how strong they are about, well, you should charge for the service if you offer a service. And, you know, if Hubstaff were completely free, I think people would question, well, how are they affording that? Are they selling my data? You know, like what other way, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product, is kind of like the way that it's usually said. So, you know, we've talked about this like all week long. This has been my Twitter feed. Is he right? Is he wrong? Is Apple right? Is Apple wrong? You know, what do you think about creating or stirring controversy to get people to look at your product? Is that slimy? Is it genius? You know, what's your take on this, Tyler?
Yeah, I'm not touching that. My question back to you all is, what's your Apple bill? What's their cut? What's the cut that they take of y'all's
we pay $99 a year for our Apple Dev account, and nothing else runs through there. I mean, Hubstaff has a mobile app, right?
Yeah, we do, and our subscription is ran completely through our web application. So,
and that's because you follow the rules. So,
so why don't we just cut to the chase? What? Because I actually don't fully understand what is the way that you can get around the problem that they're getting into.
So the basic way is that you need to offer a way for someone to upgrade into the app, or you need to be a reader style app, or you need to offer full functionality in the app without requiring someone to upgrade. Now, B2B apps, which Hubstaff would definitely fall under because it's like 100% a B2B app. Newton maybe toes the line a little bit because it has kind of a Yahoo.com email addresses work in it. I'm sure there's like consumers that use Newton. The difference there is that we allow someone to sign up and that they can use the app forever with some level of functionality. Now they can go online and they can upgrade and they can get extended functionality. But when Hey launched, they didn't give any functionality. You can't sign up. And even if you don't have a subscription, you can't use it. It's essentially a useless app. So Phil Schiller's entire feedback point is like, we don't want apps in the App Store that just do nothing. Like it should do something when you sign up, when you sign in. So they knew what they were doing. I mean, I think that's the basic feedback. And what Rahul is kind of saying here is we just dealt with it calmly and quietly. You know, they made noise for the sake of making noise. Jordan, do you have strong thoughts on this? Because Tyler's bowed out.
Yeah, it's like, I don't even know. I get that, like the marketing side of it, but it just looks so bad. Like I love Rahul's comment here. Like we just dealt with it calmly and quietly. It's so classy, the right way to go about it. Like there's other things to argue in life. The way that I think about it, like imagine you just going to someone's house and then being like, well, your house is shit, or like I don't like it here. You're like, okay, like get them, like leave my house.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I guess that's part of their thing too that I read about it is like you don't have another option. If you want to be on an iPhone, you don't have another option. You can't download from anywhere else. So and that's what they want, is the option to be able to say like I want to go away from the App Store. But the reason why I pulled this in is because the argument is like if you don't go that route, then you're not successful. But Superhuman has done it's not only another successful company that's doing just fine, but they're literally another email. It's not an email client, but they're whatever. But they're in the same field and they're doing just fine following the rules. And for those founders out there that are listening and the startup owners, is you don't argue with Apple. You just calmly, quietly just actually talk to them. Sometimes we've actually gotten the advice of just resubmitting it because you'll get a different
reviewer.
But now that they've dug their heels so deep,
Absolutely.
now Apple's setting
now they're
precedent.
stuck. They have to. They made a news release about it.
Apple's setting precedent. So if Apple reverses on them, they're opening themselves up to a whole slew of lawsuits.
They definitely could have done this in a calm way, and it probably would have had a very different outcome. But it's not as buzzworthy. No one's going to be talking about it.
I mean, that's not DHH's style. He's and like, good on them for being trailblazers in doing something new in a brand new way that is privacy focused. If you could think of the exact opposite of Superhuman in an email client, right? It's hey.com.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, the reason why, Rahul and Superhuman are dealing with it calmly and quietly is because they are the antithesis of what, they
are the opposite of
they're
DHH
opposites.
and hey.
Well, and so, I mean, they're each successful in their, spectrum opposite, way.
So you're not surprised here. That sounds exactly right. When Rahul says we did it quietly, you're like, yep, that's expected.
Yeah. Because they want, if you want to go deep on DHH, you got your spy pixels and Superhuman stuff, right? And like that's what hey.com
they even
is
call
trying,
them out in the app. If you receive
trying
an
to
email,
kill it. Yeah.
If you receive an email from Superhuman, it's like this email was sent with Superhuman spy tracking pixel, and we block it. And they like call them out by name too.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, I got an email yesterday from one of the pitch at hey.com emails, and it like calls it out, shows Superhuman, and says like someone sent this from Superhuman. You can tell that they're maybe a little bitter about it, but they do call them out.
I think I'm very grateful for DHH and Jason Fried, and for being, they're my little thing is, on my corner of the internet is learning out loud, right? And that's what they're doing. That's what they've been doing, right? They're activist about it, right? They're not just saying we're going to try this remote thing. No, we're also going to try this remote thing and say, here's how to do it well. This is what we learned, right? And we drew the ire of DHH back, when work from home was kind of flying, right? We got that attention, and that's something that for us, like we got lumped in with some other applications that are not our favorites.
So what was that about? Just like the concept of time tracking, or
just
screenshots?
The piece where we're saying, okay, we're also going to attach proof of work to things, but our thing is to put that in the power of the user, in the hands of the user as well. It's not just an owner, that we're going to say, okay, this is shared proof of work. This is, when I send my timesheet to Hubstaff, it comes with proof of work attached saying, I did the things that you told me to do, and pay me for it. Right. And it's not
a spying, I don't believe my team isn't working. It's more self-accountability is what you're saying.
It's self-accountability and the piece where we're saying, like, I'm in control of the application, right? I'm in control of, it's on my device. I'm in charge of the data. It's in a shared space. It's owned by, all of the above.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also generically, I think it helps you just move faster, because then you can like kind of self-audit yourself. You go, oh man, I spent a lot of time on that task. How can I speed it up or like get more help next time? So I totally agree with you.
Yeah, that self-audit of recognizing what you were working on and, hey, wow, I think I could do this better next time. That self-reflection piece is really important. But I think what Hunter touched on is interesting. It's this idea of like arguing with the behemoth that is Apple. I think, we had with Newton, actually, we had something come up where we weren't going to buy CloudMagic Inc. We were actually just going to buy the assets, and we bought CloudMagic, when we weren't going to buy CloudMagic, we needed to form an entity. And so we just formed an entity called Newton Apps Inc. That was just what the name of the company was going to be and what we were going to own it under. And when we submitted it to Apple, they actually rejected our developer account, saying that they own the trademark for Newton, which they don't. They actually gave it up in 2013, and we own the trademark for Newton. But yeah, you know what we did? We renamed the company because we were not going to fight that battle with Apple. It just would have been a waste of time, energy. I would not, I mean, even being loud and obnoxious about it, it wasn't going to get me anywhere. I'm not going to beat Apple's lawyers. They'll, you know, drill me into the ground with any type of fees that they can afford, and I can't. So I don't know, maybe DHH and Jason are the right guys to maybe make this change and bring about change that wouldn't have happened otherwise. But I do think there's something to be said about kind of the meek and humble way that Rahul said he approached it, which is just like, you know what? We just followed the rules. We got our app out there. We didn't need to make a big, you know, squeal about it. What I hope doesn't happen is that as a result of this, the guys that were quiet and didn't make a stink like Rahul now all of a sudden get second guessed, and Apple goes, oh, well, you're right. We shouldn't have approved these apps, and they start yanking apps out of the app.
Got to grow that services revenue for Wall Street.
Yeah. Well, exactly. They're you know, they're moving into the cloud services.
Well, they're only $1 trillion company, guys. Come on.
Look,
$1.5 trillion. Come on now. Don't short them.
Hit that. You didn't know that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, they hit $1.5 trillion like last week, I think.
Oh, good for them.
Yeah.
American made. Tesla's top car manufacturer in the world now.
Speaking of America, happy Juneteenth to all three of you and the United States of America.
And all 9 of our listeners,
all nine
of them, which I think 3 of them work for us. So
we're all here, baby.
We're all here celebrating Juneteenth. All right, this is our last tweet. Obviously, we talked about this at the beginning, Tyler, before we got on the show, but you saw the Twitter launch this audio feature. This is huge for us at Yak because it's getting people used to sending audio messages. It's kind of like training everybody that this is a better way to communicate, that it's fun, it's more personal. You get that emotional side of it. I got a forwarded Yak today from somebody. In the beginning, it's just this guy saying, man, I love that this was done over Yak because I wouldn't have been able to hear you laugh and understand your sarcasm because that wouldn't have come across over text. And I'm like, yeah, man, that's like why this exists, is that you can hear that emotion, you can build that relationship. So Twitter launching voice tweets is just super cool for us. I don't know that I'll ever use the feature because maybe I don't want my voice out there for everybody on Twitter to hear. But I do
just
like
on this podcast.
Just on this podcast. You know, I'm only comfortable with 10 people at a time here.
That we will tweet out.
I don't have that big of a follower base, guys. But one of the questions that actually came up after this launch is everybody asked me, hey, why did they use videos instead of like a typical like audio player? You know, why does it a video of like the profile pic and like the things like kind of audio wave maneuver around it? And my answer was, oh, well, I assume they did it because of accessibility, because videos can have captions and you can read captions for accessibility purposes. And then we have this tweet here. We're sorry about testing voice tweets without support for people who are visually impaired, deaf, or hard of hearing. It was a miss to introduce the experiment without the support. Accessibility should not be an afterthought. And all of a sudden I went, oh, well, maybe that's not why they did videos. I thought and assumed that was the whole point because you can caption it. Videos have better accessibility. Like this is something that's like a standard on the web already, you know, where audio players is probably not nearly as standard. And it's interesting that they totally missed on that. Now, should they apologize? I don't know. What's your thought on that, Tyler?
I think for me, if you're going to introduce it as a video thing, like where is the person that is, who's the person in QA at Twitter that doesn't like say, I can't hear this, or where's the caption stuff, right? I mean, it seems like if you've got a team that large and they're going remote now, like hire some folks that aren't exactly like everyone else at the company.
Yeah. I think that's super valid. And it's funny, we lambast Twitter for years for not launching any new features. We're like, what are you guys doing over there? You got this huge team. Like, why aren't you building new features? They build one feature out and everybody's now upset with them because they didn't launch it right. And, so part of me is, I agree with you 100%. Get better people in your team that would recognize the lack of accessibility. Because it was my first thought I was like, that has to be why they chose videos, because of baked in accessibility support. But then it turns out they didn't even do that. But I kind of feel bad for them in a way. I don't know. Can you feel bad for a giant corporation? But I feel bad for them in a way.
I do.
Because I'm glad they launched features.
Yeah. Well, because I know a little bit how Twitter works. These features only built by people like 30
Yeah,
Like
small teams.
And typically what happens is the product manager comes in and they have this idea. They're like, I want to build like voice messaging or whatever you want to call this, voice tweets into the app. And then they come in and that becomes their job. So I'm sure that they didn't think about this. It probably seems counterintuitive. It's like, okay, we're going to introduce this voice thing. Why would we transcribe it? Why would we put on captions that people can read? That defeats the purpose. A lot of people actually said that to me in the beginning of Yak, was like, why would you have it transcribed? Why wouldn't you just start using Slack? And it's like, well, there's a lot of other things that come along with transcription and their case captions.
I was gonna say they need to talk to the Yak people about getting some transcription in there.
It's been amazing how the response to transcription in Yak has been. Like, I think Hunter would probably say that's the number one thing he hears from customers is like, oh, this is different. This is not just WhatsApp voice messages. With transcription, this unlocks like a whole new level of power.
Yeah. Actually, I was just talking to one of your colleagues today, Tyler, and I said, you know, with everything else, like with Loom, she's like, well, why don't we just use Loom? I'm like, well, because you can't, there's no audio, there's no voice messages. She's like, all right, but I could still record stuff. I was like, yeah, but no one's doing transcription. You can't search for it later on, which is actually really interesting. I'm actually not thinking about it. I'm wondering why they didn't include transcription.
Now you can't search the tweets.
Nothing is searchable in the tweets.
You would have to post something that would be relevant.
They should have called us up. We could have figured this out for them.
And the other knock-on effect is, you know, Twitter's had such a big problem with, you know, abuse and harassment on their platform. Yeah. Like, how are they going to police any of the messages that are coming in that way?
Josh Constantine brought this up. This was like the first thing that he tweeted out was like, oh, well, if they can't, you know, nail bullying in text, how do you expect to do it in voice? Because all these companies, Facebook, Twitter, everyone's like, the AI will fix bullying for us. Well, I'm sure that's like a million times more difficult over voice. But I actually have a counter argument to that. And my counter argument to that, well, and I think I'm maybe benching it on the humanity factor, but what we found, at least with Yak, is people are much less likely to be a dick when they hear themselves out loud. And there's something about like speaking out loud and hearing your own voice that you start to like check yourself. And you're like, oh, wow, I'm yelling right now. Or like, I sound really angry right now. Cause I'll send a, you know, Yak to Hunter, and I can even hear myself like de-escalating my voice mid Yak, because I can tell that I started out at like this very hyped up state. And I feel like it might actually have the reverse effect, which is that there might be less bullying and less abuse of the platform if people relegate to start using the voice tweets more. I do agree it's much harder to police, but I also think it's less of a problem. I don't know, do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I think I could agree. I think it'll still be really hard to monitor, but I think at like at a basic level, I can agree. I think people are generally good.
Yeah, I don't think this is a miss by them. I think honestly, that's why they call it an experiment. Like it's, you have millions of users. That's why they didn't roll it out to every single person. Like, you find this stuff out, you fix it, you adjust, and then you launch it to everybody. I think that they did the right thing by acknowledging it. I just don't know if,
I don't know. I feel like cancel culture. Yeah, I feel like cancel culture kind of came in here, and we have to have a corporation that apologizes to people now. Like, they're a private corporation. They can do what they want. If they wanted to launch a feature without, well, they're a public company, but they're still it's privately held. They're not government run. Right. It's their company. They can do what they want with it. They're not beholden to like a law that requires them to do something. You know, so I don't know. I feel like we're in a weird way that like corporations now have to apologize to the general public for launching something, and it stifles creativity in a weird way. You know, it's not that they shouldn't have thought of accessibility. They should have, but that doesn't warrant an apology. That's a bug fix. That's a patch. It's software. We can do that, right? It's not an assault on you as a human being. It's a mistake by a developer, you know, and we can issue an update. That's all it takes, right?
Well, I think accessibility is, you know, you think about Apple and the way that they really center those accessibility features, you know, as a core component of all of their devices, right? And for me, like, that makes, you know, their products more useful to a normative person, right? Because, you know, you might need to have, you know, the text just a little bit larger, right? But if the default is there's no adjustment, well, okay, now, because I'm getting up in age now, you know, eyeglasses are around the corner, right? You know, I'm going to have to deal with some of those types of things. Like, the other day I scale, like I've got the 2 monitor setup, right? So, I scaled the laptop, monitor, so that I could see the text on Slack a little bit bigger when I've got that parked over here. And then in my big monitor, it's really easy for me to, change monitor sizes and zoom in and out and zoom out. It's like those types of things like are going to make your product more usable by more people. And even the normative UAT people are going to be, right in the sweet spot. And you're going to expand that UAT just a little bit when you have that as the background of, your development process.
How do you guys think about that at Hubstaff? Is this something where you take in emails and you say, hey, we'll add it to a timeline? Do you have a public feature list or a community board that everyone can look at to see where some of this stuff is at? What's kind of your process like?
Yeah, so our user request board is massive, right? Pretty much any request that comes in the door, right, from customers shows up on that board. Now, it may only get the eyes of our product team that one time, right? But if we get another request in that same vein, right? Or here's an adjacent request, and then another customer in that same adjacent request. Okay, so now it needs to show up on the product planner and say, we need to consider this more fully, right? And, I don't know that we run into a lot of accessibility type features because, our thing is it's a pretty purpose built,
not a ton of
B2B product, right?
Yeah.
You start the timer and you stop the timer. I mean, that's but when you think about all the different use cases, like, we have, 200,000 some end users, right? And inside of, 10,000 some organizations, right? Okay, well, all of those people are going to use it in idiosyncratic ways, right? And so how do you sort that out and try to adapt to those different use cases? Well, you listen hard, right? You listen hard, and so often you're going to get a complaint from a noisy customer, right? And it's usually not in a nice way. It's a this is broken. This is when it's a really just a user experience that's unique to their use case. But if you listen hard, right, you can imagine, oh, okay, well, this is what they're saying, but here's how that connects to like broader use cases, right? And we can imagine a world in which the thing that's has some friction for them is an unspoken friction for many other customers, right? And I think that's the key ingredient of a good customer experience department, like the one that I'm trying to lead, right? Is ones that are willing to sit in the discomfort of a noisy customer that is maybe not so happy. This is a 2 or a 3 on that NPS score, right? I'm not recommending it. In fact, I'm going to go and give you negative reviews everywhere on the internet for my job the next 2 weeks,
Well, it sounds like what you're describing is empathy, right?
Right. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
But I would say, like taking that empathy and not just making that person feel heard, but to turn that into, actionable insight from the product team and the development team, right? Not just listening and saying, yes, I'm going to sit with your complaint and hear it, but also I'm going to listen to it and translate that into something that can be, put into an endpoint on the API.
Yeah.
Right. Cause I mean, that's a different deal. Just having someone feel heard is one thing.
And that goes back to what we were saying earlier, like adding a feature that takes 5 seconds just to make a customer happy. But I think we were talking about it in terms of someone who we want to be friends with. And you're talking just about somebody that maybe is a little upset with you.
Mhm.
And I think you're right that, you don't treat those people differently. You need to have that empathy for that guy that's angry and figure out how you can make it work for him.
Yeah. I mean, we have, we meet on an offsite, our remote team, right? We're globally distributed, but we get together at an offsite retreat once a year. Well, this year is probably not going to occur, right? Just travel and all the rest of that. So, but one of the things that we do is that we celebrate those noisy customers, the ones that they have shown up enough times in our queue that everyone knows their name, right? Everyone, like developers on down, right? We celebrate those people in a tongue-in-cheek way and in an actual way.
It's a piñata that they beat the shit out of.
It's a voodoo doll festival, right?
No. Our joke is that customer success is the responsibility of the entire organization.
Yeah,
right.
It is.
And that we, our emoji for it on Slack, right, is beers, right? It's cheers, right? Success, right? Because anytime that like something actually good happens, right? That's like, oh my gosh, we just shipped that feature that like we brought the voice of the customer into the process, and then out came a product that really, a feature inside of the product that met the needs of that person, right? It feels great for everybody that was along that path of ideation to completion of the product.
Yeah. And it can take that customer from being upset to being actually an advocate for your product now, because he sees that journey that you guys took and says, wow, these guys actually listened, implemented something. It's better for it, but also I feel really recognized right now.
Yeah.
Plays the ego.
Yeah.
I love the positivity in this conversation. Empathy is always the answer, it sounds like.
Yeah. It's great to have empathy for your users. Well, we're running over. I want to wrap us up here. Tyler, you've been an awesome guest with lots of sounds, voices, and very high energy, which we need on this Friday afternoon.
The next Jim Cramer, I love it. Mad money, man. We'll be mad remote next week. Boom.
Yeah, that's right. We'll make we'll do a spin-off of this where it's just you hosting it by yourself. But tell everybody where they can find you, where they can find Hubstaff, where they can sign up for Hubstaff. Give them all the deets.
Yeah, hubstaff.com is the spot to, get all of your MEADSnet for time tracking, proof of work. Hubstaff.com/tasks. We have an awesome agile project management tool. It's kind of our flavor of that really centers, stand-ups, epics. You've got your sprints. All the rest of that stuff is in there.
It's really good. We've tried it. It's so friendly. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And if it like shows up as the way that you think about projects, it is built for that, right? And then also tylersellhorn.tech. You can find my stuff there. I'm Tyler-Sellhorn on LinkedIn, the whole 9 yards. TCell89 on Twitter. On Twitter, I'm like a hardcore, like anti-racist, public education advocate. So if you're not into that stuff, like you should stay away. But for all those like B2B, customer success, remote advocacy things, I'm all on board for all of those things. So yeah, check me out.
Awesome. Appreciate having you on, man.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
We will kind of play us out here, and thanks for showing up, dude.